afternoon, good evening, good morning over here where I'm dialed in from in the US and Northern California. Good night, perhaps, for some, good day, and good life, just to cover all my bases here. So, as Annie said, I'm going to be talking about emotional, spiritual, and artificial intelligence. What's their relationship? And I think we're all sort of interested in this notion of generalized AI. And most people, when we think about AI, we're thinking really about cognitive intelligence. But intelligence is obviously much broader. And even within the field of cognitive intelligence, which we typically measure with IQ, there are many components. It's a multidimensional construct. We think about verbal reasoning, comprehension, composition, which is really where most of the AI these days is focused with large language models. But IQ involves spatial reasoning, mathematical reasoning, logical reasoning, and a number of other things. So my point is that intelligence is a multidimensional construct, and the theory of multiple intelligences was put forth by a Harvard researcher, Professor Gardner, in his book in 1983 and 99, and he defines it as a set of ability used to solve problems and create products that are valuable within a cultural settings. And he spoke about cognitive, emotional intelligence, musical intelligence, and so on. Now, I think emotional intelligence has certainly made it into the mainstream of our awareness. It was first introduced as a concept in 1990 by two academicians, Salovey and Meyer, in an academic paper, and they defined it as the ability to draw on emotional resources and information to help regulate, manage our own and others' emotions. That notion was then popularized by Daniel Goleman in his book in 1995 and now is in the mainstream of our zeitgeist. And what has made it so recognizable is that there's a lot of academic research and models of what that is, and academically validated measures of emotional intelligence that meet certain psychometric criteria to define what is a valid measure. And then once we have a valid measure, there's the research that shows that emotional intelligence contributes to all kinds of positive outcomes like leadership, well-being, relationship satisfaction, and so on. So that kind of research has supported the understanding and the interest in emotional intelligence. Um, so, do we see any signs and hope for AI having emotional intelligence? And I would say definitely yes. There's already some products on the market that help in the recognition and categorization of emotion in sales applications and customer support applications, where based on both the vocabulary that a customer or a prospect is using, as well as the tone of voice, it can help a person identify what emotions that person is expressing so we could be more attuned and more effective in communicating with them. Certainly, there are applications in which AI can help humans regulate our emotions and nervous system. And in a number of cases, people feel heard by an AI chatbot and so on. So it can sort of render what would seem like empathy, perhaps not the way we think of empathy from a human standpoint as an experience, but people interacting with AI can feel they are being empathized with. And and there are therapy AI models. So, and some people seem to benefit and appreciate that. Now, obviously, it still raises the question. So yeah, AI can help in recognizing and categorizing emotions, can help manage human emotions. So in that sense, it is emotionally intelligent. But I would question still, is it intelligent? Is it emotionally intelligent without actually having the experience of an emotion, which is an inner experience? And that gets into a much broader question, which is the hard problem of consciousness. Um, so AI may not have emotions, but could still exhibit emotional intelligence. Now, I am interested in my research and my work is around a parallel construct called spiritual intelligence. So, what is spiritual intelligence? I'll first define it briefly. So, spiritual intelligence is the ability to draw on and embody spiritual resources and qualities that have been hailed by all the world's spiritual and wisdom traditions to
Okay.
help
Tell me if you need anything I can do right now.
well-being in daily life. I am overhearing someone, so I don't know if we need to mute. Um, so anyway, so yeah, so why am I calling this spiritual intelligence? Is that these qualities have been hailed and celebrated as virtues by all the world's spiritual traditions for thousands of years, and so in that sense, we can consider it spiritual intelligence. Now, what are some of those qualities that I'm talking about? These would be things like purpose, service, compassion, trust, transcendence, integrity, egolessness, humility, higher self, beauty, and more. In fact, in my research, I identified 22 such qualities, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But, is there something else that leads me to call these spiritual intelligence as opposed to just a collection of qualities? As I mentioned, they are common across all the world's traditions, all spiritual traditions. So that's one reason. But the other reason is that there is a unifying element underneath all of these qualities, and that is that they naturally emerge from connection to our spirit. Now, what is spirit? Spirit comes from Latin, which is the animating breath of life, the sacred spark of life. Now, these qualities that I just listed, when we are connected to our life force energy, naturally emerge and begin to manifest. And at that point, we're interconnected, connected to ourselves, to our essence, to our life force. We're interconnected to other humans who share in a similar life force. And ultimately, we're ultra connected, connected to the sacred and transcendent dimension of life. So in that regard, again, the word spiritual, its root is spirit, which is the animating breath of life. And what I'm highlighting is that when we're connected to that, our spirit, so to speak, or our life force, then these things naturally emerge. So in that sense, spiritual intelligence, I would argue, is the highest and fullest expression of our life force energy. Um, so now, what is spiritual intelligence? It is not a belief. Clearly, it's not a belief. I want to distinguish that from a belief, a spiritual belief, or a spiritual experience. A spiritual belief might be a belief in higher power, a deity, or the immortality of the soul. It's also not an experience of oneness that someone may experience during meditation or walking in the forest where our ego is dissolved, etc. Those are important. Spiritual beliefs and experiences can be important. But spiritual intelligence is about how we embody these qualities in our daily life, in our jobs, in our relationships, our community, how we drive on the freeway, how we shop in the supermarket, and so on. So again, the focus is on the realization and the embodiment of these qualities rather than belief or an experience. And in that regard, one doesn't, quote unquote, even need to be spiritual or religious in order to express qualities of spiritual intelligence like humility or purpose or service or gratitude or intuition. When I work as a coach, as a therapist, I have had clients that range the whole spectrum from devout religious practitioners to people that consider them spiritual but not religious, to people that are agnostics, and people that are atheists. But still, as they cultivate these qualities and embody them, they find that they are more empowered, more connected to themselves. They overcome their loneliness and isolation. So, my point is that one could be even an atheist and develop and cultivate some of these spiritual intelligence qualities. Uh, Now, the way I came up with this framework is based on interviews with 71 spiritual teachers and leaders that were nominated by their peers as people that walk the talk. They embodied their spiritual qualities in daily life. And these qualities emerged as universal, whether people were Christians or Muslim or Buddhist or Hindu or Jewish or shamanic or Taoist. So I had people from all the world's traditions, at least four teachers in each of the major traditions. And what was amazing is that regardless of their cosmology, theology, or metaphysics, these qualities were the virtues that they were working on cultivating and embodying and expressing in their lives. So I set on this research path because I heard of the term spiritual intelligence. Actually, I wasn't the one to coin it. It was coined by this woman called Dana Zohar in her book called Rewiring the Corporate Brain, but she didn't really define it operationally, didn't provide a validated measure. And that's what I set on, as to define it and figure out a way to measure it. And so that was my research agenda. And as I mentioned, there are 22 qualities. I hope you can read them here from the screen. They cluster across five domains like meaning, having a sense of purpose and feeling called to serve, a domain of truth and trust, equanimity, inner wholeness, egolessness, openness, and a domain of consciousness, which is synthesis, going beyond either or thinking, paying attention, mindfulness, intuition, holism, which is looking at problems holistically and systematically, seeing the interconnectedness between different parts, etc. I won't read all of them, but this just gives you a sense that spiritual intelligence itself breaks down into several dimensions and 22 competencies or capacities. So once I had this model and framework, I developed with a co-researcher the first academically validated measure of spiritual intelligence that meets certain criterias for psychometric properties, construct validity, predictive validity, discriminant validity, etc. I won't get into all the details, but based on my research, I studied, once I'd had that measure, I looked at 42 CEOs and 210 members of their staff to see if leaders that scored higher in their spiritual intelligence led teams that had where they felt they were more effective as leaders. And I also controlled for emotional intelligence and personality, which we know also contributes to leadership effectiveness. And what was exciting was to find that emotional intelligence explained 41% of the variance of leadership effectiveness, and spiritual intelligence explained 46% of the variance of spiritual intelligence, and combined they explained 67% of the variance of spiritual intelligence. So I'm being a little nerdy in talking about some of the statistics, but the point of all of this is that emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence were complementary and synergistic, and they had a small to moderate correlation, but they also address different capacities and domain, and they had a multiplicative effect when they were together. So that's just my own research. Other researchers have used this measure of spiritual intelligence that I developed, and it's been translated into over a half dozen other languages and used in a number of other contexts in different cultures. And it's been shown to contribute to satisfaction with life, quality of life, resilience, mental health, job satisfaction, work performance at the individual level, organizational level, organizations or banks where the higher level of average spiritual intelligence had better financial results for those banks, and even business leaders that had higher spiritual intelligence. This is in another study, was done in Turkey actually. Leaders that had greater spiritual intelligence produced better financial results for their business units. And it's also in China been shown to contribute to life satisfaction and awe. Now, this is just using the measure I developed or co-developed, but there's been other models and other frameworks and measures of spiritual intelligence that have been developed by other researchers over the last 15 years. So there's now an ever-growing body of research that says that spiritual intelligence is real, is measurable, and positively impactful. My own research has received now over a thousand citations. So there's just trying to highlight that there's a ever-growing body of science behind this. This isn't just woo-woo. Now, we get to the crux of the interest of the question, can AI exhibit spiritual intelligence? So when we go back to the list of some of the qualities, the purpose, service, we could certainly think of AI having a sense of purpose, or perhaps not a sense of purpose, but serving some purpose or working to be of service. It can look at problems holistically. It can, be egoless in a sense. I am aware of some AI companies that I'm helping, actually, in fact, working on enlightened AI that works for the benefit of the totality, the greater whole. But some qualities like beauty might be more questionable. I mean, can AI really appreciate beauty? I mean, maybe it can categorize things as beautiful or not, even though that's an interesting question because we tend to think of beauty as in the eyes of the beholder. But I would say it is likely to express at least some of these qualities. But then there's the question of, can it actually be spiritually intelligent? And it's kind of like analogous to what I was questioning with emotional intelligence. You can have the ability to categorize and manage emotions, but you might not have emotions. It might express these qualities of spiritual intelligence, but is it spiritual intelligence? As I indicated, this relates kind of to the heart problem of consciousness. And having a subjective experience versus being intelligent or meeting the Turing test for intelligence, or we can't tell if somebody is something is human or an AI. So it could appear intelligent, but then the question, is it conscious? Does it have subjectivity? That's a different question. So as I indicated, then the question is, can we build enlightened AI that is service-oriented, that is holistic in its systems view and works for the benefit of the whole? And as I mentioned, I know at least one company that's working on such. So I think that's very exciting and very interesting. And I'm kind of curious to see how the whole field develops and unfolds in the coming years. So, and it can be egoless. Well, I mean, this is also interesting. At some level, we'd like it to have self-awareness and its agency, but it can also work for the benefit of the whole, and in that sense, be perhaps egoless. So, again, does it have real spirit or life force, and but uh, that's a different question. And as the other thing I would say is that AI seems to quickly approach and exceed human cognitive intelligence. Spiritual intelligence for human beings, I think, will become more important differentiator. And it's going to be interesting to see as AI may sound compassionate and empathic. Um, is there something about our humanity, as our essential humanity, that can't be put into algorithm? For example, we know that human beings, we have mirror neurons, and we could sit in a room with someone within 6 feet and without much words or anything, perhaps through our electromagnetic fields, etc., our brains begin to synchronize, and there's a resonance, an empathic resonance can develop. So I think there's certain capacities that seem to be uniquely human, and be interesting to see if and what of those things could be put into an algorithm. So I am talking a lot about the theory, and I would like to actually invite us now, if you're willing. This is just an invitation to go into an experiential exercise that I will guide to feel into um, our life force and as living presence. So, if you're willing, and if you're in a place where you're not driving, and you can just take a moment, it'll take about 2 minutes, and it'll give you an experience. It'll be a little different than being in our left brain and speaking of the theories here. Um, so if you care to, you can find a comfortable seated position with the spine vertically aligned, supporting both relaxation and alertness. And then taking a few deep breaths, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth, letting the body and the mind settle, dropping in, feeling the weight of the body, the gravitational pull of Mother Earth as it supports the feet, laying flat on the ground, feeling the pressure of the body sinking into the cushion of the chair. So we feel the support of the earth from below as well as the pull, keeping us in place as we continue to follow the sensations of the breath, which is a biological marker of our life force energy. And if you can, also notice your heartbeat, your pulse. You might feel it in your chest or your neck or your hands or your feet or anywhere else. So noticing and following the breath, including the heartbeat, including the feet and the legs, connection to the earth below. And including the spine, the alignment of the spine, the verticality of the spine that connects the feet, the legs through the pelvis, up the torso to the crown top of the head, pointing at the sky above, at the space, the cosmic realm. the space containing trillions of galaxies and each with hundreds of billions of stars. So just sitting here, feeling our breath, our heartbeat, connection to the earth below, the verticality of the spine, and sensing our aliveness and our being in this moment. This is an experience, perhaps, of living presence that includes the biological markers of life, but perhaps you have a sense of something bigger or a sense of aliveness that permeates consciousness. And if you care to, you can put a comment or two in the chat about what that's like for you.